Hi family, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Kanisha and I'm here to serve God for His glory. So yesterday, my mom and I had a breakthrough. So we basically made history in the history of the women in my family, and God has pressed this upon my heart to share it with you guys today. So my mom and I have an interesting relationship, and recently God has been working on my heart in terms of unforgiveness. And at first I couldn't understand why, because I didn't feel like I was holding on to any grudge or resentment towards anybody. I'm someone that forgive very easily, very quickly, and so I was going down the list of people that wronged me, and it was a long list, and I couldn't see who, like, in that list that I was holding on resentment towards. And I started really searching deep inside of me and asking God, because God He works in different ways. And He put in front of me this sermon. And this sermon, I've already watched this sermon online a few weeks ago. So when He re-put it back in my face, I was like, I watched the first 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, God, I already watched this. Let me watch something else. The next day, He puts back the same sermon in my face, but in a different form. You see how God is funny? So the sermon was about unforgiveness, but in particular, specific to parents. So unforgiveness towards your parents. And basically, I didn't recognize that it was the same video, because that person had put like the audio version in form of video. So 10 minutes into it, I was like, this is the same sermon that you wanted me to watch yesterday, that I've already watched a few weeks ago. Like, why are you sending me the same video? So I'm like, you know what, maybe there's something in that video that I missed and that I didn't take in. And while God was doing all of that, I started a book from Stephanie Ick called The Power of Your Dreams. And I was around the chapter where she was talking about unforgiveness, right? So clearly there's someone in my heart that I haven't fully forgiven, and maybe I was in denial about it. But after watching that sermon, I realized that Father was talking to me about my mom. And I was holding on to bitterness towards her for many years. And my feelings are not unjustified, but I was in denial about it. I felt like, and I was putting up healthy boundaries between my mom and I, because I felt like, because she didn't understand where I was coming from, I had to protect myself from being hurt again. So yeah, and I do want to just put it out there, like, I'm so proud of my parents. I got the opportunity to watch them grow and evolve as I grew, because my parents had me when they were at a young age. So both my parents immigrated to Canada. I think my dad came here with his family around the age of 15, and my mom was around the age of 17, 18. And so my dad, he's from Haiti, and my mom is from St. Vincent. And, my dad moved on he played semi-professional for Haiti, and he graduated with a bachelor's degree in engineering, and he got a good job, a stable job at a multi-billion company, and he's been working there for 30 plus years. So yeah, we definitely moved out of the hood, okay? I got to experience how it was living in the hood and how it was living in a bougie or a more medium to high income environment. And my mom and her career path was a little bit more shaky, and she was an Anglophone living in a French environment, so naturally it is not as obvious to not speak the main language of the province, because Canada main language is English, but Quebec main language is French. So my mom, she knows how to speak decent French today, and she got a degree in PBA, préposé aux bénéficiaires, which is in English like a nurse assistant. So yeah, I'm really proud of my parents and how they grew and they evolved, and they was able to give us more to us than what their parents were able to do for them, and that's always like the goal. But going back to my relationship with my mom, so I grew up mostly with my mom throughout my childhood. So I've always lived with my mom and my sister, my older sister. And at the age, I think it was so at my first year of high school, that's when my older sister and I moved with my dad. So in high school, my older sister and I was moving back and forth from between my mom and my dad. And in my last year of high school, so right before graduating, guys, I really don't want to cry, okay? I'm a crybaby. So my mom and my sister got deported out of the country. So they had to go back to St. Vincent. And I was born in Canada, so I was a Canadian, and I had my life going on. Like I had already signed to go play for a college team for basketball, and I was getting ready to graduate. So my mom never had the opportunity to see me graduate, from whether it was from high school, college, or university. But my dad was there, and when my mom and my sister, I lived with her my whole life. No matter if I was living with my dad or my mom, I always had my sister, right? So it was the first time that I was separated from her in particular. But yeah, they were out of the country, and I didn't know when they were gonna come back. But gratefully, I moved in with my dad, and his girlfriend at the time was very welcoming and receptive towards me, which is the mother of two of my brothers. And while my sister and my mom was in St. Vincent, I was completely abandoned from them. I was like the baby of that generation of kids. I was the youngest, and when they left, they just forgotten about me. I could count on my fingers the number of times that they contacted me, and I accepted. I was just like, it must be hard back there. They must be struggling. They're probably in their own world, and I made up excuses for them, but there wasn't any excuse for them to not reach out to me. So yeah, I can count with my fingers the number of times that they reached out to me, and they were gone for 4 or 5 years. So they eventually came back to Canada, and I knew like I had my family from my dad's side. But I was holding on to resentment because of that towards my mom in particular. Because I know that although my sister was old enough to know better to reach out to me, I know that they assumed that I was always good, I was always a good kid. I never caused any problems. I was always in my sports and in my school. And I wasn't hanging out with the wrong crowds, right? And they knew that my dad had my back. They knew that they left me in good hands. But still, it wasn't an excuse for them to not call me, take 10 minutes, not even of their day or their week, but just once a month. And I just kind of just shove my emotions in a box as I would always do. Back then, it was like a reflex for me to not fully feel my emotions and what I was going through and just put it in a box. And eventually that really numbed me. But that's the reason why I was holding on to bitterness towards my mom. And having a conversation with my mom yesterday, and like I brought this up, like when my mom came back, she felt like there was like this distance between us, but it was like, yeah, I spent the last 5 years without my mom, so I definitely felt rejected. Even when my sister got married in Stevenson, and she had asked me to be her maid of honor, and I was so happy, and I'm like, I had no intentions of missing my sister wedding, but the relationship wasn't the same as before. We grew distant from each other, and I confirmed to her that I had bought the ticket already, and I had bought my wedding dress already, and I was gonna be there. But then I heard that she had a backup in case I wasn't gonna come, and it was almost like she wasn't sure, or she didn't trust the fact that I would show up for her, and I couldn't understand my mom and sister behavior towards me. But I did show up for her, and I was there, and I got to visit them while they were in Stevenson. But I don't know, for some reason I never really hold any grudge against my sister either. It was just my mom. And having a conversation with my mom yesterday, she told me that her mom also neglected her as a child, and she was holding on to bitterness as well. So it's just a generational curse, and she never had the opportunity to reconcile with her mom about it, or to get an apology from her mom, or for her mom to understand how that made her feel, or to acknowledge that what she did was wrong. And my mom was like that. So they came back to Canada in 2015, if my memory is correct, and we're in 2024. So it's been almost like 10 years since this happened, and it took us 10 years to get here, but we wouldn't have been able to find peace with this before this year, because it was this year that God showed me that it's okay to have feelings, and I knew that. I've been working on getting back in tune with like feeling my emotions and not numbing them down for a few years now. So I've been in tune with my feelings, but I was in denial about my resentment towards my mom. And I was in denial because like I always showed up for my mom, and I was always there for her. And my mom and I, we talk every week. So for me, I didn't think that I was holding on to anything. For me, I was just setting healthy boundaries because she couldn't understand where I was coming from. And because she couldn't understand, she can't do better if she doesn't know better. But, and we had conversations about this before, so it wasn't getting through to her. So I felt like I have to do what I have to do to protect myself. And eventually, this year, I finally admitted that I was holding on to bitterness, and because I was able to admit it, I was able to release her from the prison of my heart. And she also finally understood and stopped making excuses for abandoning me. And because I told her, like, she could have, she said that she told me, how could I take care of you if I couldn't take care of myself? And I wasn't asking for her to take care of me. You're in a different country. But you couldn't even check up on me. Not even once a month. Nothing. So, yeah. It was just, the relationship with my mom was completely absent. And even when my granddad passed away, I didn't even know and she didn't call me to tell me like, hey, my dad passed away. Nobody, like, it was just non-existent. We just didn't have a relationship anymore. And I found out weeks after the funeral that my granddad passed away, and I didn't even get the opportunity to go to his funeral. Because one of my family member, my uncle, reached out to me and he was like, hey, like, do you know, like, granddad passed away? Well, I guess the family members from my mom's side was probably wondering, like, you know, Kanisha never called, we never gave her condolence, nothing. So I was in shock that all that happened without my acknowledgement. And my mom knew about it, my sister knew about it, but nobody told me. That's how bad, like, we weren't connected anymore. And so yeah, explaining this in details because an area of your life that God is going to work on is definitely your heart. And there was definitely cracks in my heart that needed to be cleared up due to that unforgiveness. And my mom was one of the person I absolutely need to forgive. And regardless of her apology yesterday, I already forgive her. But there is a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. Reconciliation takes two parties for it to work, and forgiveness is work that you're doing within yourself, right? And you don't need an apology from that person for you to forgive them. And because sometimes, you know, people are too caught up in their own ways, in their own brokenness to acknowledge, you know, what they've done and the truth. So I'm glad that we were able to do that yesterday, and I'm able to share this with you guys. And however, between that 10 years of me holding on to that, when my mom came back, I didn't immediately move in with her because I was living in another province playing for my basketball team. And after I graduated from university, I decided to focus on my finance career and not give up, but just stop pursuing basketball. And so when I came back, I decided to live with my mom. And honestly, I was living with my mom and her ex-husband, her husband at the time. And honestly, I just wanted to get out of there. Her living with her and her ex-husband wasn't I don't know how to put it, but I had to tiptoe my way around him to make sure that I wasn't getting on his bad side. And he did not fully accepted my older sister and I in his family. So it wasn't the most ideal situation. And also I didn't agree with certain ways of parenting in terms of, like, I had to, you know, I just graduated from university. I'm paying off the last bit of debt, and I still had to pay a portion of my mom's rent, and I still have to pay a portion of groceries while I'm living with two grown adults that, with or without me, would have to pay for that. And I wasn't a bad or troubled child or causing any harm. So when I got back there, like, I was just in my own world. I spent a lot of time in my room, and I had my little brother and sister also, and I didn't really give them much attention. I was just I don't want to say I was cold towards them, because I always loved them no matter what. I was just in survival mode, living in there, and I worked crazy overtime to make sure that I could leave that apartment as soon as possible. And I wasn't being abused in any way. I was just, I didn't like living under their roof. And they were toxic to each other. my mom and her ex-husband, they were toxic to each other. So I just didn't want it to be in that environment, and there wasn't any price to my peace of mind. And so I would rather pay full rent by myself than be in that environment. So yeah, I worked crazy overtime to save up for me to be able to buy furniture and move out, and to get my own car, because I definitely needed, at that time I was living outside of Montreal, so I needed a car to travel and run my errands. So yeah, so I worked really hard, and so that relationship kind of like the emotions that I felt towards my mom didn't improve over time. But no matter what, my mom and I always stayed connected. There was never a time where we were just like, from the time that she came back, of course, my mom always was wondering why I wasn't calling her, why I wasn't visiting her as much. But in my head, I'm like, well, you set the tone, like that's the relationship that you created. I'm used to living a life without you now, and it's not that I'm spitefully not thinking of you, just I've been having to live that way. So yeah, so that's basically, I eventually, after a little bit over a year, I accumulated enough money for me to move out and buy my own car. And since then I've been living alone in my own apartment. And finally yesterday it got through. And so God is so good, guys, because this wouldn't have been possible without God. I wouldn't have been able to admit that deep down inside of me, I was holding on to some form of resentment. And so it's so important for you to ask God to do the deep heart work, to search your heart and to release any bitterness and judgment and resentment and hate and pride that you have towards a person. To ask God to give you a heart like his for that person, to fill your heart with compassion and love. And it's one thing to be able to identify the person that wronged you and the person that you're holding on to unforgiveness towards, but this is a posture that you need to keep up in your daily life. Every day you have the option to judge someone or to show grace towards someone. And God's greatest commandment is to love God and neighbor. So you train yourself how you see the world, how you perceive it, and how you treat people. So if every single day you're out in the world and you're hating on people, you're judging them, and you're being overly critical towards them, in Luke chapter 6 verse 45 it says, "For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of." So that's basically showing you what your heart is full of. Your heart is full of, and judgment is a form of hate, right? So your heart is full of judgment, is full of hate, is full of resentment. And you might not be full of it, but it's showing you how your heart is speaking through your mouth. And in Luke chapter 6 verse 37 it says, do not judge and you will not be judged. Do not condemn and you will not be condemned. Forgive and you will be forgiven, right? So if you want to receive forgiveness from God, you need to also forgive others. So yeah, it's super important to pray about it. And the Bible is a love message. The Bible is so many things, but above all, God is speaking his love towards us through his words. And the more that you understand his words, the more that you can understand his love, and the more that you can reflect his love in your life and onto others. So the first step really is to forgive that person and to release that person from the prison of your heart. And the second thing is to continue practicing showing love and compassion and grace to people, so that it becomes just who you are. You are a naturally loving and and graceful person. And I'm not saying to go out in the world being naive and ignorant and not protecting yourself. No, you can show love and grace to someone while setting healthy boundaries to protect your heart, and while addressing that person in a firm, respectful, and assertive way. You know, God doesn't ask us to be peace takers, to be walked on, or to be anyone's punching bag. God says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will see God. They will see Him." And that's in Matthew's. So, you know, everything about your heart and showing love and forgiveness is so important in your journey. And God has shown me that through my relationship with my mom. And, you know, my mom was one of the persons I needed to forgive. But the one person that I needed to forgive above all is myself. I needed to forgive the little girl inside of me because I didn't protect her from the world. I numbed her feelings. I suppressed her emotions. I didn't express my wants and my needs. I didn't set healthy boundaries. And so I allowed people to disrespect me, to walk all over me, to offend me, and to wrong me, and to hurt me without defending myself. And I need to forgive myself because I didn't allow myself to feel anger, bitterness, or my emotions that transformed into anxiety. So there's people that, if you notice, there's people when you watch a movie, they become highly anxious and they're always trying to figure out what's the end of the movie. That's a sign that they have a hard time expressing anger, and so it's been transformed into anxiety, and so they become an anxious person. But yeah, I definitely needed to forgive myself and to remind myself, like, I need to protect myself, and that God is gonna help me to do so, and He will protect us as well. So that is so key, guys, for you to understand and identify that person, to forgive that person, and practice that in your daily life, and read the word of the Bible to learn how God loves, and to pray and ask God to help you heal and to forgive. You know, God has chosen my mom to be the person to bring me forth in this world for a reason. So who am I to judge? Who am I to cast resentment? And you are entitled to your feeling, but it's how you react that determines the posture of your heart. And one last thing, guys, because there's generational curses. So we have familiar spirits, we have monitoring spirits, and we need to recognize who's a true enemy. Regardless if it's your parents or it's somebody else, you need to know that your true enemy is not the person that hurts you, because nobody hurts you from a place of wholeness. Nobody hurts you from a place of love. When somebody hurts you, they're coming from a place of brokenness. So you need to understand that that person that wronged you or offended you is broken inside. And it's because of their brokenness that the enemy, the true enemy, the evil spirit was able to exploit their weakness, exploit their brokenness, exploit their trauma, and use it as an opportunity to come against you. And this ends now. This ends with me and my mom. My mom went through a similar situation with her mom, and I had the opportunity, and so I'm grateful that I was able to reconcile with my mom on that point. There's still some work that my mom and I needs to do, but I'm really grateful that that was the main thing that needed to be addressed. And so, it says in the Bible in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. Yes, you have experienced it in the physical realm. You've experienced that hurt in the physical realm. But your true enemy isn't flesh and blood. We wrestle against rulers, principalities, authorities, powers of this dark world, and against spiritual forces of evil. Is that spirit that is coming against you. When I go from organization to organization and I keep getting attacked and bullied by the same type of person, there's a spirit behind it. That spirit, sometimes you go from one relationship to another and you realize that it's the same person in a different body, but it's a spirit that is attacking you. And once you're able to identify the spirit that is attacking you, then you can actually fight your battle with God, because this battle belongs to God, right? So know your true enemy and make sure that you follow the 4 steps that I give you to release that person from your heart, which is to identify the person that hurt you, to pray about it, to read God's word to help you love people every single day, and to continue your journey of healing. Because like I always say, this is a journey, not a destination. So remember who your true enemy is.